Okay, welcome everyone to the EQI 2.0 Leadership Report Debrief Webinar. I am your host, David Cory, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to walk you through how we look at and think about a leadership report based on the EQI. So for those of you who are in the know, this will be old information for you, but for those of you who do not know about the EQI was the first scientifically validated assessment for EQ, first appearing in 1997, shortly after Daniel Goleman's book made the concept of emotional intelligence popular worldwide. And the EQI has gone through an updating process, a brand new norm has been produced, and in 2011, the report has been updated and the model has been modified and upgraded, and lots of great new features which we'll point out to you as we go through this leadership report. So originally the plan was that Kim was going to play a client and I was going to play the coach, and we were going to talk with you about how we were going to actually demonstrate a debrief conversation for you, and so we were set to do that, and then this technical issue means that we are unable to do that for you. However, if you can still hear me, then I will keep speaking with you, and hopefully this will be of some value to you. So the leadership report, as you know, is an option that you get when you have someone go online and go through the 133 items. They complete the assessment protocol, and then we, as administrators, we log back on and we create a report based on someone's responses, and we can choose the workplace report, which is a somewhat simpler report and not directly focused on leadership only, and that's a helpful report in a lot of circumstances. But where leadership is the focus for you, where you really want to zero in on developing leadership, then you probably want to use the leadership report, which is this one here that we're taking a look at. The leadership report is a little bit more expensive, so the wholesale cost to you as a certified user of the EQI is, for the workplace report, it's $55 or tokens. The system uses the MHS portal system. Uses tokens, and one token is $1, and that's just easy so that you can purchase a certain number of tokens and then choose which report you want to use, either the workplace report at $55 or the leadership report at $80. So these are our wholesale costs to you as users who, and then again you would build that into your contract with the organization that you're working for, or if you're internal to an organization, then these are costs that you would need to consider. So these are your hard costs, the actual wholesale cost for the EQI. So you produce a report, you get a report back, and then you want to take a look at it and begin to consider how you're going to approach a debrief with a client. And so one of the things that you might do is to take a look and remind yourself of this wonderful transformational leadership model that the leadership report is based on. And this report is, or this model rather, of transformational leadership comes from a review of various transformational leadership models, and they developed a survey that would measure these various dimensions in leaders. They gave this assessment to 220 leaders, and they also gave these 220 leaders the EQI. And there in that paragraph is described how they did this. They went across various industries across North America. The majority of leaders were working in large organizations, over 400 employees. As a group, the leaders had significantly higher emotional intelligence than the general population. In fact, the average total emotional intelligence score for leaders was 14 standard score points higher than that of the general population. So right there, it seems fair that we raise the bar on leaders. And if you think about the extent to which leadership affects employees and organizational effectiveness in general, it's really important that we underline and highlight for supervisors and managers how critical developing their leadership skills actually is. We know that poor leaders don't just affect employees during their workday, but employees go home at night and they think about this terrible person they work for, and it drives their performance and productivity down, and then ultimately they end up leaving the organization. And so organizations can't afford for this to happen unintentionally, and so it's important for organizations, of course, to do something proactive about this. And so this is one way, is to try to gauge how managers are doing with respect to these 4 pillars of transformational leadership, and we'll see how these look in action momentarily. But they are authenticity, which is, of course, is about someone being who they really are, and then coaching, of course, is about the support that managers provide to people. There's insight, which is about managers sharing what they've gained and what they've learned in order to inspire others. And finally, there's this idea of innovation, that if a leader is not driving innovation, not leading innovation, then it's not fair to expect innovation to happen. So these 4 are really what managers at all levels need to consider in terms of taking that step from manager, which requires a knowledge of the business, which requires the knowledge of the technical skills required in order to do the job, and to take that to the next level, which is about the challenge of leadership, which is choosing to make a difference in the lives of the people around you. And so here in this particular report, we've got what we call the leadership bar, and you can see at in the middle of your screen there that with respect to the 220 leaders measured in the development of this report, they took the top scores, the top 50% of scores, and created a range. So of the top 50% of those 220 leaders, the lowest score was at the low end of the gold bar that you see positioned over the range there. The highest score is at the high end of the gold bar. So the idea there is that we've got a range that your scores should be in if you are to be an effective leader. And if they're not, then we need to talk about the implications. And so what we would normally do with this individual in this case, Kim was going to be Al. I was going to say to Al, Al, I just want to let you know a little bit about how this is going to go. We're going to take a look at the results of the online assessment that you took as part of your leadership course, and we're going to review those results in confidence. Nobody gets to see this report but you and me. We're the only ones. We don't report to your manager. We don't create any notes or anything that go to anyone else. So if anyone sort of learns about your results, it'll be from you, and then we'll talk about who you should share these results with and what the purpose might be in doing so. So we'll talk a little bit about what you do with the results. But for now, we want to take a look at results, and by the way, you'll notice that we didn't give you all that much time to read over the report prior to this meeting, and that was intentional. The reason that we do that is that we don't want people to read the report, come to some incorrect conclusions about themselves, and feel like they're inadequate or they don't measure up or they're somehow less than, without having the ability to process those first impressions, those first feelings with someone who can say, it's actually not about that. It's about taking stock or taking inventory. That's right in the name, the emotional quotient inventory. We're actually just looking at what's there versus versus testing you or trying to sort of say that you should or should not be in a certain place. We just want to be honest about where you are now. And if we can do that, then we're going to get some great information in terms of creating awareness for you. And we can't change what we're not aware of. So it's becoming aware of our strengths, becoming aware of our weaknesses, and deciding whether those weaknesses are weaknesses that we should maybe be looking at and addressing so that we can improve our effectiveness. Okay, so thank you for people who've just reminded me that you don't see anything on the screen, and for those of you who are arriving late, just want to let you know, apologies, first of all, for not showing you the report. Let's go back to the beginning screen. That's what the first screen looks like. So just again, for those of you who were expecting a demonstration of the debrief, we're just having some technical issues, and so that technical issue is that I have no ability to hear what's going on. So apparently you can hear me okay, but I can't hear Kim, who I was going to have this little role play with, and we're going to demonstrate the debrief for you. But I can talk about the leadership report and tell you more about that. And so we'll just take a look at that. Here is the model that I was talking about previously, and I'm sorry that I did not notice that I was not showing the screen to you. Here's the transformational leadership model of authenticity, coaching, insight, and innovation. It's a great little model, and we actually have correlates with the various 15 EQ competencies. What I would recommend that you do throughout is continue to type in your questions, your comments, and I'll come back and answer those at the end of sort of taking a walk through the report. However, what we've got here is we've got our first view of results, and so we're going to say to our client, to Al in this case, we're going to say to Al, it looks like the report has identified 3 top scores for you, and I just want to talk with you about those 3 highest scores and talk about what they mean. What you see on the page is you see some bar graphs with some numbers, and the numbers are standard score points. And standard scores really just mean that your score has been compared with a representative sample of the population in question. In this case, it's a North American sample. And you've been compared with 4,000 other people, and basically you've been graded on the curve. So you've been placed along that curve of results, and we've used some algebra to transform your score. It's really not complicated statistical analyses. It's simple algebra, and we've transformed your score to a standard score. Now, we've chosen 100. We, being the brilliant statisticians who created this assessment, have chosen 100 as the mean. And so, if you imagine your normal curve, 100 is the very midpoint. So 50% of scores are above 100, 50% of scores are below 100, and we're interested to know, where do you fall within that area? Now, it would be easy to assume that higher is better, but higher is not always better. In fact, we'd rather see a balance of these 15 competencies in action than to see that we've got one that is quite a bit higher than the others. Now, your highest score is in impulse control, which generally is a very good thing. And so you can read the bit of a descriptor there. And again, you're going to have this to take away with you after our meeting today, and then you can sort of underline, highlight, consider, think about, review, reflect on anything that's in the report. And then we've got 2 additional meetings, 2 additional coaching sessions, at which time we can discuss whether, in fact, you have concerns and questions, and make sure that we answer all of your questions at that time. Let's go back to this score in impulse control, and in general, this is a good thing. and this is, it seems to suggest that maybe you are a fairly stable person. There's some deliberate planning, perhaps. There's some care taken to avoid spontaneity and acting impulsively. And if I were to say to this individual, does that sound true for you, or does that seem accurate? My guess is that they would say yes, in fact, that is true for me. And then I just want to point out that because it is a highest score, and some of the other scores that we're seeing there are not quite in the gold bar range, that it may be a possibility that this care to avoid spontaneity may actually act as a deterrent to action at some points, and just see and check in with this individual as to whether any of that could be going on. My guess is, again, that they may say, you know what, that does resonate for me, and we'll take a look at some other competencies and how those interact as well, and see what may be possibly going on there. Okay, so in terms of some of the lower areas for this individual. Sorry, let's finish with the top three again. So independence is right around the mean at 103, which seems to suggest that someone is fairly independent, which is a good thing. However, there's just a little bit of a gap between this person's score in independence and the bottom of the gold bar range, and so we might wonder a little bit about that and whether that could be improved for greater effectiveness for this person. So we're going to keep that in mind and maybe possibly pull that back into the conversation a little bit later on. Then we look at emotional self-awareness, which right around 102 means that this person is effectively aware of their emotions for the most part. And still, it's just a little bit below the bar, so we can ask, or we can talk about what that might mean for this person as well. Going down to the lowest three, why do we look at the lowest three? Well, we only have so much time, and it's not really fair or reasonable to expect for someone to work on many more than 3 things at a time. So we want to suggest that we sort of check and see whether these 3 lowest scores are areas that this person is interested in working on and may want to work on for the future. So optimism is the lowest score at 80. And then the descriptor there is about tending to see the negative aspects, being, playing the devil's advocate, and possibly being quite critical, and the possibility that there's the possibility to dampen creativity and motivation on the team, etc., may also be there. So we want to talk with this person about whether that's true for them and what the implications are there. And then when we look at interpersonal relationships at 84, that's again, the standard deviation is 15, so anything that is lower than 15 points off of the mean, so that would mean anything lower than 85 or higher than 115. These are significant scores, and so with respect to this one at 84, we want to talk about what that may mean for this person. This person struggles with relationships. And of course, for leaders, this is really important, and it's also something that we deal a lot with in our coaching work with leaders, because there is a bit of that old school mentality, which is about coming to work and not coming to work to socialize or have fun or have relationships with people. Versus the younger generations, which really see those personal relationships as part of what a reasonable expectation of a workplace is. And so Kim and I and our other coaches are often talking with managers who are a little bit older and about not seeing how important relationships are to people. And so by investing in relationships, we then see that connection and that team effectiveness begin to develop and grow. Self-actualization for me, in my mind, as soon as I see a self-actualization score like this, I just feel like this person's in the wrong role, and they're not doing what is fulfilling or has meaning for them, and that's what they've said in their responses. And so here the description is, as a leader, you may appear unfulfilled, or you're lacking, or you're in your interest in personal development or achievement, etc. So to me, this just suggests, again, this person is in the wrong role. Then, of course, we've got the model here, which we can review with an individual. And just very quickly, because I realize that a lot of you are familiar with this model, emotional intelligence is at the center of the model, the acknowledgement that the brain deals with and processes emotions and emotional information. And then outward from that are the skills related to emotional intelligence. And it's really those skills that we're interested in. So with respect to emotional intelligence, there is a genetic predisposition. There is a hardwiring component. There is a nature component of emotional intelligence, but there's also a nurture component of emotional intelligence. So whatever you were born with, you have learned various skills and coping mechanisms, etc., throughout the course of your life, and that's what we want to know more about, because these are the things that we can change. We can't change our hardwiring, but we can change the way that we interact with others, the way we view ourselves, the way we express ourselves, the way we make decisions, etc. Those are things we can do something about, and that's what we want to coach people around. That's what we want to get people in groups talking about in our training sessions, and that's where we feel that we can have the greatest impact, is on the nurture, the learned component parts of emotional intelligence. Here is the overview of scores for this individual, and we could go up and take a look at the total EI score for this person and say that it's just 5 standard score points below the mean, and so it's still within the effective functioning range and doesn't signify any big issues for this person with respect to emotional intelligence. Now, put this person in a leadership position and compare this person to other leaders, and now we've got a potential issue, because this person is not where we expect leaders to be based on our little mini norming that was done with this tool. The lower end of the most effective leaders is around the 108, 109 level. So that's what we're kind of shooting for. So the total EI is interesting, and it's helpful to just take a quick glance at, but it's not where we're going to spend our time in working with this individual. We actually need to go to look at the details, which of course are the 15 competencies. Here again, we can see that high score of impulse control, and we see very little other scores reaching that impulse control level, and so that's a bit of a red flag for us who are interpreting scores and looking at scores. And now we're asking ourselves, and eventually we're going to ask our client, what are the potential downsides of this higher score in impulse control? Well, what are the ways in which this deliberation and this careful consideration and this thinking things through, what are the extent to which those act as deterrent to actions and really are not helpful? So that's the problem with the potential problem, rather, with a high score. We don't immediately assume that all high scores are negative or that they impact people in negative ways, but we do want to consider, first of all, for ourselves, and then possibly out loud with our clients, what the potential negative might be there. So here, in looking at this, at the page, I'll give you a little bit of the behind the scenes. In preparation for our time today, Kim and I had really wanted to come up with a bit of a persona, a bit of a character, and so we looked at this this profile, which is not uncommon. And is there a common or a stereotypical profile, and absolutely not. In fact, you see profiles that actually look like people are perhaps functioning at a high level, and then you find out why, what's not working for them, and the fact that various things that at first glance appear to be effective actually work against someone, and vice versa. So it's really very difficult to tell just from a profile about people. And all we can do are say that, this is what the results seem to suggest, and then enter into dialogue with the person who created those results to know more about what the implications are for that individual themselves. So we see the score and impulse control, which again could be a good thing if we use that in the right way, but then could be a bit of a drawback if we spend too much time in deliberation, not enough time in action. And then we look at some other areas like emotional self-awareness, which is right around the mean, which again seems to suggest effective emotional functioning to a degree. Emotional expression seems effective right around the mean. Independence, assertiveness, these seem to be right around the effective area. Empathy seems effective. Now, what we're not seeing is effectiveness in optimism, in interpersonal relationships, as we've discussed, and in self-actualization. So we really want to go there and talk with this person about those areas. And we also want to know a little bit more about, and we have this benefit with this report, we want to know a little bit more about how this interacts with these 4 areas here that we see in the transformational leadership model. So, for example, authenticity. We want to talk about with our clients, what is authentic for them. So one of the first things we can point to is self-actualization and say, it seems that something that is authentic within you, an authentic need for something that that has meaning for you personally, that is fulfilling for you, is not being met. What is that? What does the client think is that thing which is missing for them in their current role? And Kim and I, again, discussed what could that be for a person with this kind of profile, and what we came up with was someone who was perhaps in a technical role. Could be that it's someone who is maybe in programming or something that is very technical in nature. And that person, because of their high impulse control, will likely not take a lot of action, even in their own careers. And again, this is all hypothesizing and just wondering how it could be. So again, nothing determinate, but it's useful to go through these exercises of thinking through what could be underneath these scores and these results. So we've got this individual for whom things are not going well in their work role. How could that be? Well, it could be that this technical person has been moved into a position of management. Now they're accountable for the performance of others. And whereas their first inclination, their tendency, their desire is for working with things technical, now they've got to work with people. Now they have to meet with people, discuss their performance with people, they have to be supported, or they have to be a support to people, and this is an unfamiliar, uncharted territory possibly for this person. And that may be where the self-actualization issues arise. Now, what can we do about that? Then what kind of conversation could we have about that? Well, one conversation that I suggested to Kim was around who were the supports for you in your life? Who were the people who were influential to you in your life? Who are the people that caused you to think about things in different ways? Who are the people that motivated you to go in certain directions, inspired you to perhaps become interested in this very technical pursuit that you're involved in? And have that conversation and that discussion. And I think that could be a very useful conversation, very useful discussion to talk about that, and help this person to see that in fact they could be that person for others. There are probably people who respect this individual for their technical skill. And so how to capitalize on that, how to use that to be a real leader. So we move over to the next box to the right and talk about how our client can actually impact positively on the work and lives of others by actually being a mentor. And what does that mean? How does someone who likely has a preference for introverted thinking, how can that person actually become interested in supporting and working with others? Well, one reason why people become interested in doing things is because they have to. We perhaps have all been in a situation where I'm just checking a few things here. People have made some great comments. I don't want to miss out anything here. Yes, and Kim's giving me several hints and tips and things to say, and one of those is absolutely, Kim, it's a best practice to not make any assumptions. However, we can make a few assumptions and check them out. And my view of assumptions is that that's part of what we do, is we make assumptions based on the information we have, and then we check them out, and we prepare to be wrong. Another fantastic suggestion by my brilliant colleague Kim Cairns is the linkage with core values, and absolutely. So here we can begin to talk about, because with self-actualization is about values, right? It's about the fact that we're either able to do work which aligns. This is about alignment. So it is alignment with core values, or something that is out of alignment. And the suggestion here is that this person is out of alignment with their core values. So again, what are those core values? Let's go back there. Let's talk about that, and then let's talk about how those core values may in fact be the basis for actually moving into more of a leadership role versus staying in that management role. So here we see that that in terms of coaching, it may be something around excellence. It may be something around conscientiousness, or some value that a technical person would have that we can then translate into leadership. So if it is about excellence for this person, then they would be concerned about the excellence of others. And if they see a role for themselves in terms of the excellence of others, then perhaps that isn't supporting other employees' growth. So those direct reports, to allow this client here to see that the people who report to them actually see them as someone to be emulated, then this takes on a bit of a different perception on leadership. So they're not just managing the work and breathing down people's necks about and demanding that certain expectations be met, which people come by honestly, because traditionally this was what leadership was to people, was the leaning over the desk, it was the pounding on the table, it was the command and control autocratic style of leadership, which we are thankfully seeing is becoming extinct. But there still are those ideas out there, and often we see people moving into positions of management not ever having given any thought to how they impact on others and how they are as a leader. And this is our opportunity with using the EQI with people essentially raising their hand and saying, okay, I will go there, and it's guarded and it's caught with a great deal of caution. However, it's up to us to, help people to see what the potential benefits are for them in considering this move to leadership from management. So there's that move right from authenticity, who this person actually is, and that the acknowledgement of of them as a role model. And again, it's an opportunity to comment on moral and fair behavior, that we don't trust people that are not moral and fair. And so I don't know if any of you have been following the Rob Ford train wreck, but there's a great example. Well, it's an extreme example of destroying trust, and just that lack of awareness on the part of an individual as to how their behavior has absolutely destroyed trust. And people saying, listen, I don't want to follow this person anymore. And the story of how in their last council meeting, the councillors all turned their back to the mayor as a show of lack of support and lack of trust. And so this authenticity is I guess not just being who you honestly are, but being who you honestly are with a few caveats. That if as in Rob Ford's case, who you authentically are is immoral, then that's not a suggestion. That's not an encouragement. We don't want you to be that way if that's who you really are. So we're talking about people in their role as a leader. You can go and be immoral as long as you're not in our organization and accountable for the performance of the people who report to you. So coaching is one piece where we may want to try to encourage this employee to see that they have a role. Insight is another area because this person has been likely moved into their position of management based on their technical skills and their experience in the workplace. Now it's about leveraging that. How can we encourage our client to see that by sharing their insights that they've gained and their vision for the future and the way that the work can go, if we can encourage them to move into that space, that role with their direct reports, again, we can help them to see how it actually does align with some of their values. For example, if excellence was a value of theirs. Now, moving into innovation may not be a stretch for this person. If this person is a very technical person, however, we can also point to and look at that high impulse control as a potential issue around innovation. Because what we know is that innovators, creative people, they actually take some risks in order to be innovative and to come up with creative ideas. And so if there's a downside to impulse control, it may be that risk averseness, that deliberation, that analysis paralysis that some people get into, where they actually don't ever get to action, and that could be very unfortunate for this individual with respect to that level of impulse control. So those are some of the ways in which we can begin to talk about and move into talking about scores with this individual. At the bottom of the page, you can see the leadership derailers and the fact that impulse control is a potential derailer. However, at 116, it's not considered to be a potential for derailment in this particular case. Stress tolerance at 97, that's right around the mean, probably not a great risk. So as the text suggests, there may be a moderate risk of derailment, just because of the slightly lower than slightly lower than the leadership bar, not the mean. So so the mean seems to be okay. It's just that the gold bar is not met. Okay, so let's take your questions, and so I encourage you at this time to send in your questions. Oh, just one quick look at one of the pages in the report, self-regard here. So again, it gives the score. Then it talks about what the score means for this individual. Then it looks at leadership impact and some strategies for action. At the bottom of the page is a question or is more information about balancing various emotional intelligence competencies. So I'd like to talk, to discuss and answer your questions now. So please type in your questions, and we'll take a look at those. I see something. Okay, and that brings us back to some of our questions. Question, is the webinar being recorded? Yes, the webinar is being recorded, and we'll send out a link to all of you. And Kim is adding, based on the idea of sharing insights, is being curious about the insights of others. So again, encouraging leadership as a conversation, leadership as a dialogue, leadership as a relationship with others, and not just about coaching, mentoring others, just about sharing insights with others, but it's about inviting them into the conversation about how things go, how things are to be carried out, and getting some great information in the process from people who really know, people who are at the front lines, as In Search of Excellence, Tom Peters wrote in the early 80s, management by walking around, by going out and being with people and chatting with them about the work. Other questions? What other questions do you have? Okay, so a question, how do I take this assessment? Well, you need to find someone who is certified or qualified to administer the assessment, and that's something that our company does. So you can certainly talk to us about doing that. And if you want to use this tool in your work, you can certainly come and take the certification course from us, which certifies you to use the tool yourself. So we do both. We use the tool with our clients, and we're certainly happy to use it with you. And we also certify people to use it. And so just to give you a few more details around, in answer to your question, in terms of how do you take the assessment, let us know that you'd like to take it. We'll send you the prices involved. We package our assessment and debrief with 3 coaching sessions. So the first coaching session to review, sorry, did I say coaching questions? Coaching sessions. The first coaching session to review the results of your assessment. The second to follow up on that, and we might give you some homework to do in the first session, and then a third session to follow up and see how you're progressing along in your addressing various areas that you're interested in addressing to become more effective. Okay, what are some of the questions you ask an individual when evaluating their emotional intelligence? Great question, and I think that could be interpreted 2 ways. You might be asking about what are some of the questions on the EQI, which are statements, and those various statements are things like like I am in touch with my emotions, for example, or I can say no when I need to. Those statements, and then you've got a Likert type scale, which goes from 1 to 5. 1 is never / rarely, 2 is occasionally, 3 sometimes, 4 is often, and 5 is always / almost always. So that's the question about what the EQI asks people. So there's 133 statements in 15 categories, and those are the categories that we see here. And then in answer, if your question was about the questions that you ask an individual when evaluating or exploring their EQ scores, like I was kind of walking through here, these would be questions like, if we go back up to the scores here, and we see a score like this score in optimism at 80, we would say something to someone like, this suggests that you could be quite a critical person. Is that true for you? And in which case they may say, well, yeah, it is. Then we might ask a question like, what are the implications of that rather critical approach to most situations in terms of how it might affect others? Do you know anyone who is critical most of the time? What's that like to be around that person? And is that what how you want to have relationships with people in your workplace? So it's really through those kinds of questions, those kind of coaching kind of questions, that we help people to come to the idea. The point is to come to a new awareness, and then of course once we come to that kind of awareness, then we can discuss whether they're interested in doing things differently. Okay, so another question: does this type of test, the EQI 2.0, have you observe an individual, or is it just you asking them questions? And the answer is, with this particular assessment, the assessment where you observe an individual, that one is a video-based assessment, and that is certainly one way of looking at someone's emotional intelligence. So you look at video clips of various individuals doing a series of questions about those situations and circumstances. But this one is a standardized psychometric assessment rated as a level B by the Psychological Association, and so it's 133 items, and you're looking at the self-report report. And I know I repeated that word, but the reason is that the EQI itself was designed initially as a self-report assessment. So people do answer questions about themselves. Now, if you have concerns about their own self-awareness, then you would use the EQ 360 with that individual, so you're comparing the people's self-ratings with ratings of other people around them. Next question: how much is it? The answer to that question is, I answered the answer to that question in terms of a wholesale cost, but then in terms of if you wanted to take it from us, then we've got a price listed on our website of I believe it is, for an individual taking the EQI, getting a leadership report, it's $1,297, and that includes the assessment. So that's $1,297 for the assessment and 3 coaching sessions. So that's what our charge is there. And if you wanted to do the 360, we do that for $1,497. If you have a group of people, then we look at a volume discount. Next question: hi, can you please send me the info you're talking about in prices to have the assessment done? Absolutely, we can do that. So we will do that. And here's a familiar name. Are we looking for balance in the 4 general competencies in the leadership potential scores, or more interested in working towards closer to the mean? Yeah, good question. And the answer is that we actually don't want to include scores or balance or these kinds of things in terms of what our objectives are. Our objectives are for people to be a more effective leader, to have better conversations, to show up in a more confident sort of role model style. These are kind of the objectives rather than improving scores. We have people who say, well, how can I get a better score in the EQI? And the question is, well, why do you want a better score? Don't you want to be a better leader? And then it's about looking at, what are currently limitations or roadblocks for people, and how can we address roadblocks in terms of being better at knowing and understanding our own emotions and being able to connect with others more effectively. My brilliant colleague Kim again. Purpose, deepen the learning, and forward furthering the actions. And of course, those phrases come from the Coaches Training Institute, and they're good phrases, right? We do want to help people to deepen the learning about themselves. And that's one really important point that we want to help people with is how can this person become more self-aware with respect to these competencies, which we know are a comprehensive model of human effectiveness. And then take that into other various realms like leadership effectiveness, and it becomes that more critical that people look at and understand where they're effective and where they're not as effective, and how they can improve in those areas. So the forwarding the action, forward and further the actions, is about how can we take this person from where they've been and take them to a new place. That is forwarding, furthering the actions, learning more about those roadblocks, those limitations, those barriers, and coming up with concrete steps and concrete ways of moving forward. So thanks for the great questions. And another person, by information, I mean info on how I can take the assessment. Absolutely, we won't overwhelm you with information, but we'll give you a lot of information that will be helpful for you in terms of knowing how you can take the assessment, how you can bring it into your organization, how you can use it if you are a performance improvement professional. All of these kinds of things we're happy to talk with you about, and happy to provide more information for you. Just reading another question here. How does it work to get certified? For example, I see that EITC will be in Toronto in April. We'll be in Toronto December 9th, 10th, 11th. So what we've got is we've got two brochures on the website. We got a 2013 brochure, and so we've got a couple courses. We've got a course starting in Calgary on Monday. It's not too late to join that course. If you want to come join us on Monday, feel free to do that. If you want to join us in Toronto December 9th and 10th, you'll notice that every time we have a course offering, we've got 2 days. So the two-day program is the certification course, and so you can get certified through the publishing company Multi-Health Systems, and you'll get all the pre-reading and all the online learning and all that stuff before the actual course, and then you come to the course for 2 days, and then you can choose an optional third day, which is a very popular option, where we actually share with you what we do with our clients in terms of leadership development. So you'll get a participant manual for a 2-day course. We'll talk about keynotes, presentations. You'll get PowerPoint presentations. You'll get exercises, games, activities to improve EQ, lots of great information, ideas on how to talk with clients about improving their leadership. We call that 1-day course EQ for Leadership, Train the Trainer. So that's an option. Just reading the rest of the question here, you can certainly come to our course in April, and if you sign up now, you'll get the book, you'll get the online learning, and everything as soon as we get your registration. Also, will there be a test at the end of the 2 days? Yes. There is an exam. It's an online exam, and the reason is that that the EQI is a level B psychometric that is rated by the Psychological Association. And so with a level B psychometric certification course, there must be a knowledge test, which is the online exam following the assessment. So it's open book, and it's online, and you have to get a minimum of, I think it is 70 or 80% to pass, but most people pass. If you don't pass, and a couple of people don't, and really what we determined was that they weren't really focusing and concentrating as much as they needed to, because it's a multiple choice assessment, or it's a multiple choice exam, and you need to read carefully in order to do well on that. Can you get certified without a test? No. So when you come take the course, we're going to invite you to take the EQI, and you're going to have a debrief session with one of our brilliant coaches like Kim, and before you come to the course, and then you're going to learn how to debrief these assessments. And we spent a lot of time understanding the model, etc. So one last question, and then we've got to wrap up for the day. How can we relate transformation to servant leadership with this model? Thanks for the question. It's a great question, by the way, and there's lots of interconnections. It's a great short question, but it's a long answer. And of course, servant leadership, Robert Greenleaf in the 1970s, or if you wanted to really go back in time for servant leadership, a lot of people use Jesus as a role model for servant leadership. So there's lots of great ways that leaders can actually serve their direct reports, and of course transformational leadership is about transforming the organization one relationship at a time. So absolutely, there's a lot of connections between transformation and transformational leadership and servant leadership. So thanks for that question. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Sorry for the technical issue and why we had to change our course. I hope it was interesting and useful for you. Join us again in future, where we will be providing a lot more information, a lot more discussion of issues, presenting different types of reports, etc. And we do that every month. And so join us as often as you can for more information about emotional intelligence, measuring emotional intelligence, helping people to improve their emotional intelligence. I'm going to wish everyone a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And thanks for joining us, everyone. Bye for now.